What if I told you there was a 35mm camera with a titanium body, autofocus, and Carl Zeiss lenses, and best part of all, you can pick it up for a couple $100. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Contax G1. So I've told you guys what's in the package, but the question is it any good? At about the time Tanya Harding was beating up on Nancy Kerrigan, Contax in Japan was primed to release a 35mm rangefinder. The Contax G1 was designed to compete with the other expensive boys at the time, the Leica M7 and the Voigtlander Bessa R. And when I say the G1 was an expensive boy, I mean, it was an expensive boy. The body alone retailed for $2,210 at the time, which equates to about $3,900 in 2022 money, plus or minus a couple thousand due to inflation. The camera did come with a fast fitty at the time in the form of the Carl Zeiss 45 f2. In addition to the 45mm lens provided by Zeiss, Zeiss also had a 90mm 2.8, a 28mm 2.8, and a 16mm f8. If really wide angle, super slow shutter speeds are something that you're into. But all of those lenses together, coupled with the 45 that came with the camera, made the camera an attractive little system at the time. That is, provided that you could afford to be in the system, because the lenses were also $660 each. The 90mm was $660, and then also the 28mm was $660, which equated to about $1,200 in 2022 money. But we'll talk about the quality of the lenses later in the review. Contax made the G1 alongside the G2 until 2005, when Kyocera, their parent company, decided that they would make like Ludacris and roll out. But provided you have eBay or a time machine, you can own one of the greatest pieces of tech that ever came out of Japan, apart from the Mobile Suit Gundam. So broadly, what is the Contax G1? Well, it's a 35mm rangefinder style camera. And just a word about what I mean when I talk about it being rangefinder styled. This is a fully electronic camera and there is no mechanical rangefinder inside the camera. So for you rangefinder purists, thanks for the clicks. We'll see you later. The camera is super small and compact. It doesn't weigh much at all, 16 ounces. It's got an aluminum chassis inside and a titanium clad body, which means that like a pair of Crocs, it's both lightweight and really strong. All told, you can see it in my hand, makes for a very small, very portable, yet very capable camera system. Another word on that titanium clad body, I think we should address the fact that this sucker is gold. It doesn't just look gold, like it's gold. Golden color with the pearlescent shine is the natural color of the titanium metal. So that's really cool. And you're not just getting that finish on the camera, but you're also getting it on the lenses as well. So everything's all matchy-matchy. I mean, just look at it. This is the kind of camera that James Bond would have taken on holiday. And it's not just the looks either. The camera is just put together really, really well. There is no flex anywhere with any component. Everything is just put together super tight. You can see the panel gaps are really, really small, and everything is just built like a Swiss watch. And that's to say, freaking amazing. So let's talk about how you control this bad boy. Starting left to right, there are two buttons on the left. ISO is set automatically via DX coding, but can be overridden manually. The drive mode has all the usual suspects: single mode, continuous shooting, timer mode, and multiple exposures. The ability to do multiple exposures that easily just by a little switch on top, super cool. On the right side of the top, the big prominent dial on top with its fantastic knurling controls all sorts of fun things like auto exposure, your exposure bracketing, and then also your shutter speed. And beneath this dial, there's a little switch sticking out which is for ABC. Not the silly song, but automatic bracket control. Just across from this dial, there is another big prominent dial, again with lots of knurling on the side, which controls autofocus selection and your manual focus distances, which I'm gonna have quite a bit to say about in the focusing section of the review. There is one more prominent knob on the top of the camera, and that's gonna serve as your shutter button first and foremost. Also, it has the exposure locking system inside that, the AEL setting, and then most importantly, it has the shutter button built in. It's pretty simple to operate. You just point the camera at something you like and push it. And beside that, there's a really small LCD screen. That's gonna give you a readout of how many exposures you have left on your roll of film. So I said there would be more to talk about with the camera's focusing, and the focusing is very interesting for this camera. There is no true manual focusing like you would have with a Nikon FM2 or a Canon AE1. You have this big prominent ring here that looks like it would be a good candidate for a focusing ring, but alas, it does nothing. The only thing that you can control on the lens is the aperture. And it is a very positive, clicky aperture. So folks have had a lot to say on the internet about this camera's focusing, and I'm gonna have to put some of that to bed right now. At least my version of the camera and my version of the lenses, they focus perfectly. But there is a little bit of nuance to that statement. And I'm gonna take a picture on the video so you guys can hear kind of how everything sounds. I'm turning my camera on. You hear that? There can be no question when this camera is focusing. So let's get one thing out of the way right now, and that's that the focusing system for the Contax G1 is really loud. I mean, absurdly loud. I mean, it sounds like a T1 Terminator coming to destroy your house. Like, it's very, very loud. There's no mistake when it's trying to find focus. So with that in mind, one tip that I've got for focusing this camera is you have to listen to it. You want to hear the camera hunt and then grab focus. And then you know you've autofocused properly and that you're gonna get a good exposure. And as long as you're paying attention and listening to the focusing system, you're probably gonna wind up where you wanna be. There's also another thing that you can do to ensure that you're still getting accurate focus if you don't trust the noise. And that's when you look through the rangefinder of the camera. You can actually see there is a little LCD screen that lights up on the bottom of the frame. If that focusing meter says that you're focused on infinity and you're trying to shoot something that's right in front of you, well, you know you're not focused properly. And in a lot of situations, you'll be able to look at that focusing meter and tell, hey, my camera's probably out of focus, let's try again. So just be mindful, listen to the camera, look at that focusing meter, and you're gonna make sure that you get perfect exposures every time. So that's the autofocusing in this camera. It's not fast, but it is accurate. Manual focusing is obviously different. We talked about the dial on the top of the camera that has the focusing settings on it. To operate that dial, you're gonna push in the center button and then you're gonna rotate the dial off of the AF. That's gonna take you out of the autofocusing mode, and then you're gonna be able to focus it manually. Now, you're gonna have to use some zone focusing or read the focusing meter inside the camera to tell whether or not your shot's in focus, because this is a rangefinder. You're not looking through the lens. You're not gonna be able to tell if the shot's in focus or not. So that can make manually focusing the camera rather difficult. But you can hear me twisting the dial and the camera changing focus based on that. But this is really useful if you just want to focus on infinity. It's got a hard infinity stop, roll the dial back to infinity, and camera's gonna be set to infinity. So that's another little trick for focusing in this camera. You can manual focus it, but there is some nuance to it. Why didn't they just let us focus on the lens? So now that we've determined that the camera can actually hit focus, let's talk about the lenses and the relative quality of the lenses. And I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. I shoot a Nikon FM2, that's my other camera. I bought this camera to be a little faster. It's autofocus. I was going on vacation with my kids and I wanted something that I could just pull out, pop a shot, boom, put the camera back away. And this camera is perfect for that. But the thing that has surprised me the most about this camera is the difference in image quality that I'm able to get with these Zeiss lenses. In a word, are exquisite. The image quality is absolutely perfect, and they're all built extremely well. They all, you can see, here's the 90mm 2.8, which is kind of a portrait focal length. Everything on it just screams quality. I mean, and they're also gorgeous. These are really nice objects. So I'm gonna show you some pictures of some shots I've taken with this camera and let you be the judge of the image quality, but I think it's great. Discussion of the differences between the green label Contax G1 and the regular old plain Contax G1, which is what I've got because it was a little cheaper when I was looking to buy the camera. There are two versions of the Contax G1, the regular one and the green label version. The green label version has been modified to accept a couple of later lenses. After the release of the G1, Contax came out with two additional lenses, the 21mm and the 35mm lenses, and because these lenses required additional electrical contacts, they would not work on the Contax G1 without a modification. You could send your Contax G1 away, Contax would update the camera and allow it to work with these later released lenses. And my goodness, how I would love to have a 21mm lens. So I may be going back to the well to buy another Contax G1 with a green label so I can use that lens. But that's beside the point. There are two versions of the camera. You're gonna wanna know if you're okay shooting the 28, the 45, and the 90, and then also the 16. The regular G1 will work for you. If you want to shoot the 21 and the 35, you're going to want to try to find the green label version of the G1, or if you're just big and rich, you can just buy the G2. But if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I'm probably ponying up the extra cash flow and I'm grabbing the green label as well. So do as I say, don't do as I do. These are all three exceptional lenses. Each of the lenses that I own for it are fantastic, but in my mind, the 45 f2 is the best performer. It also grabs focus lightning quick. It has the easiest time focusing of the three lenses. That's not the case for the 28mm lens. That's the one that's actually on my camera right now. This is the lens that has the hardest time grabbing focus. If you're in a challenging lighting situation, the 28mm sometimes can give me a little bit of trouble focusing. I don't know if I have a bad copy though. Your miles may vary on that front. Taking lenses off and putting them on is really simple. Press this button on the front of the camera body right there and just rotate. And then luckily for us, there's this nice little grip on the front. So you just turn them, boom, they come off. Line the dots up again. There are red dots on the lens and the body, and twist them again until you hear the positive click. So we've talked about the lenses available and we've talked about the image quality of the system. What does all this cost? You know, we're wielding exotic materials like titanium and aluminum chassis, and we have German optics in the lenses, and apparently Porsche helped design this camera. Well, you'd be surprised to know that on eBay, these cameras are going for a little more than just a couple $100. You'd be surprised to know that the Contax G1 and all of its titanium glory, along with the 45mm f2 lens, can be had for about $500, $600 in that range in 2022. You can pay a little more and get a bundle package with additional lenses and accessories like I've done. You can see I haven't even talked about this yet. I have the Contax TLA 140 flash, so that's super cool as well. But my whole setup here, the three lenses that you see and the flash, that was all about $1,100, $1,200, and I did buy that from Japan. So $600 for the kind of the low-end system with the 45 f2, but $1,100, $1,200 for the system like I got with everything. So a really, really affordable camera system, especially when you're basically getting Leica level image quality. You're getting perfect image quality with autofocus. So just a really, really sweet deal. Something else I did want to talk about the camera is the battery that's used. The camera uses two CR2 3-volt lithium batteries, and if you didn't know, those can be rather hard to find and also pretty expensive. So if you're using this camera with any regularity, you're gonna wanna make sure that you stock up on those cameras, or do what I did and jump on eBay, buy a recharger, and then also some lithium rechargeable batteries to go along with it. It's worth noting as well, those are the same batteries used in the flash as well. So if you get those rechargeable batteries, you'll be able to power your whole system with the same battery top. So I love that. What great thinking by Contax to keep the batteries the same between the flash and the camera. By Contax's estimates, the camera should be good for about 1,920 exposures, plus or minus a few out of those two batteries. So once you get the battery situation squared away, you're gonna be able to shoot for a really long time. So that's awesome. So let's talk about the pros and cons of the Contax G1. You've got a good lens selection made, produced by Carl Zeiss lenses. Carl Zeiss being a byword for the best lenses in the world. You've got a camera that doesn't cost all that much. You've got titanium body panels. You got portability. You got autofocus. You got a flash system that goes along with the camera and lens. So you got everything. Negatives to go with the camera. All of those good things, all the good things about the Contax G1 rely on electricity. And as we know, with old consumer electronics, they don't have the tendency, they're all going to fail at some point. So as much as you love your Contax G1, as much as you take care of it, at some point, those teeny tiny electrical connections inside of the camera are gonna come undone and the camera is gonna stop working. The world's sexiest designed paperweight for your desk once that happens. That doesn't mean that we can't have a lot of fun on the way to getting to that point, but it does have a problem inside. There is a cancer inside the camera, and that is the electricity. So that's the big overarching negative to this camera. For all of the wonderful things about it, there is that specter of electrical failure that is coming for all of our electronics at some point. Other drawbacks to the camera, we talked about this at length. It's not an actual rangefinder camera. As we talked about earlier, there is no mechanical rangefinder inside the camera. It sure would be nice to be able to manually focus this system by a conventional mechanism rather than using the little knob on the top of the camera. That can make things a little bit difficult. There are specific circumstances where you really need to dial in focus manually, or you would just feel a lot better if you could manual focus. So that's another thing, is the manual focusing with this camera can be kind of wonky. Another potential negative is if you're not paying attention, you're not listening for the autofocus, you're not looking at the focusing meter inside the camera, you're gonna miss some shots. And I suspect that that's what's happened with a lot of the reviewers who've been critical of this camera. They're used to your Nikons and your Canons that just grab focus lightning quick without much thought. They get this camera, like I said, it sounds like a Terminator coming to your house. Like, focusing system just in general with this camera is a little bit wonky. It is accurate, but you need to take the time to learn it. So that could be another drawback as well. I have loved the Contax G1 since I bought it and started using it. It has supplanted my Nikon FM2 as my most used 35mm camera. I use them both, I own them both, love them, but at this point, the convenience of having autofocus just makes this camera an absolute delight to use. And I highly recommend you guys picking one of these bad boys up before the good news gets out and the prices are jacked up to the moon like every other good camera system. I mean, it's a no-brainer to me. Carl Zeiss lenses, titanium body, autofocus, rangefinder. It's a no-brainer. Just get one. Just get one. But if you're looking for something just a little more manual, I also have a review of the Nikon FM2, which is an exceptional camera as well. So as always, guys, thank you for watching. We'll see ya.